Hey everybody, welcome to another great episode of the show presented by Uncanny Media. It's your good buddy Spider here. That was a great intro. That was a pretty good intro. I think we're getting the hang of this after 30 episodes. You think? Maybe? I don't know. It is episode 30, by the way, which is pretty good. I have a bad habit of not always following through with things. And I'll get to a point where I'll do a lot and then it'll fizzle out and I'll get bored with it or I'll get lazy with it or something, you know? So I don't want to say I'm proud of myself, but I feel good about keeping this podcast going for 30 episodes, which is not very many in the long term. I know there's podcasts that have been going on for years that are into the hundreds of episodes and things of that nature, but this is pretty good for me. This is pretty good for me, I think. So how are all you doing? How are you feeling? How are we, taking life a day at a time? How are we at appreciating the moment, which is a little throwback to my last episode. It's not always easy. I'll say that. I've had some moments over the past week. Nothing that's, I'm stable, I'm feeling good, but there's things that could be better. And so we're working on making sure we appreciate the moment. But today, this episode is going to be a music episode. I'm going to talk a bit about my musical history, how I got into musical things, how I appreciated musical things, and where I'm at musically today, and some music that I might recommend. And because I'm in a weird spot. I'm in a weird spot with it. And I'm going to explain that when I get to it. Because my relationship with music as a concept and as a practical thing is not what it was some years ago. And I don't really know how I feel about it. I work through it sometimes. I wonder about it in my brain. It's one of those things that if I was still a brooder, I would brood about. But I don't really know. I just kind of look at it sort of like, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. First, of course, we got to talk about the weather report. Because, we can't go without that. Old man in Ohio has to talk about his weather. The weather is, it's stable. It's warm most days, and it's getting colder at nights. The nights are down into the 40s, the upper 40s, Fahrenheit for those people not in the United States, which is cold. It's starting to get cold. It's not getting into snow weather yet, and which I'm thankful for. But it is getting colder. We'll probably have a cold Halloween this year, next month. Some years you have a rainy Halloween where it just rains and it's not really cold per se, but it rains. And the other years you have a snowy Halloween. And I think it's going to be cold, but I don't know if it's going to snow. I haven't had any indication of snow conditions just yet. But, we'll see. But it's been a little chilly. I haven't had to run the air conditioners for a couple of weeks now, to be honest. Sometimes they keep running all through September, and other times they don't. And I think towards the end of August, I didn't have to run them. And it's going to be pretty soon before I take them out of their windows and store them for the winter. Or for the fall season, whichever. And the entire household is sick with a cold. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last couple of episodes that I had developed a cold at some point. And so I'm still a little sniffly because the germs have gone away and then come back. Because the wife, she got a brief cold and then was feeling better and then went to work, and then the weather changed and all kinds of things happened, and so now she got a more serious cold, probably a sinus infection, and she gave that most likely to my daughter. My daughter has a sore throat and snuffy nose and things, and I have a snuffy nose and a light cough, but I think that's just left over from what I had before, interacting with the new germs in the air and trying to decide if it wants to make some kind of super virus or if it's just trying to make me miserable for a few minutes, you know? So they're all sick. I'm feeling mostly okay. I'm a little under, but I'm mostly okay. But I have, of course, I have the great equalizer. I have my bourbon, which some people will say, well, that's not a healthy way to deal with diseases, but you know what? It's okay. I've got my bourbon. And I've been doing a lot to... I mentioned within the last few episodes about how I've been trying to take care of my health. Because I'm a drinker, and because being reluctant to give up my drinking, which again, some people will say, that's a pretty serious character flaw. I think you're going to develop a problem sometime. I think it's a problem now. You know, it's something I like to do. I'm not going to spend every single episode defending it. But I've been trying to figure other ways to keep the rest of my body healthy and to work on my liver and to do different things, just so I don't develop failure of certain organs as I get older, because I'm certainly not getting any younger. So I had mentioned before I was on an estrogen blocker. Not blocker, a reducer. A blocker sounds like it's real serious business, but this is just something I ordered from Amazon that had good... The ingredients look fine. I did research on it to make sure it wasn't going to murder me. You know, it wasn't poisonous. It's mostly... It's made from broccoli extract, so I guess probably some people would say, well, why don't you just eat more broccoli? Well, because I don't want to eat that much broccoli all the time. You would have to eat a lot of broccoli to equate to the extract. And while I enjoy some broccoli here and there, I don't want to eat broccoli with every single meal. I don't want to eat a cheeseburger every single meal. As much as I might enjoy it, I don't want to eat it every single meal. I gotta have a little bit of variety, or at least something. So I'm on that. I bought what's supposed to be a testosterone booster, which I don't think I particularly need, but it has other things in it that are helpful. And it's an overall positive effect, as far as I'm aware. And you're supposed to start seeing some kind of, or feeling different after like 2 weeks. And it's almost been maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe a week and a half. And I don't know if I'm feeling... I don't know if I'm feeling marginally better or not as far as all that goes. But, you know, it's a process. It is a process. I'm hoping it doesn't make me overly hyper-aggressive. Because remember, as I've mentioned in my When I Was Your Age episode, I've struggled throughout my life with anger problems. And I'm past a lot of that as an adult. And I don't want to slip back into it. I don't want to go back to being a super angry person all the time. Because it wears you out to be angry. It takes a toll on you just to be so angry all the time. And I get annoyed and I get irritated and still these days, and I'll get pissed off about stuff. But, you know, it's temporary. It's little things. It's not like when I was younger and I had this constant, almost Incredible Hulk-like feeling of simmering anger every minute of every day, because that's what it was like. And I'm glad I've kind of been able to calm down from that, because it's not healthy for me to feel like that, and it's not healthy for people around me for me to feel like that, because I can hurt people's feelings. I can, it's just not fair to the world for me to be so angry about things that aren't really worth being that angry about. It was really it was unnecessary anger is what it was. It wasn't like righteous fury or anything. It was just, I was mad about things because I was mad about them, and there was no need for me to be so angry. It was unreasonable. So I'm hoping the added testosterone is not going to push me in that direction, because I know how my brain chemistry works. And if I start feeling that way again, I'll probably have to, I don't know. I want to say reduce the dosage, but it's only a certain amount every day, and it's not very much. Or just give it up completely. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I want to prioritize my peace, so to speak. But I've got those going on, and I've got vitamin E, which is good, again, for the liver and for other things. And omega-3 fish oil, which has beneficial effects in the same areas and for being healthy and all that other kind of stuff. So, I'm doing supplements and whatnot, and I would like to get to the point, because part of it is just I don't have energy. Like, I don't want to sleep all day. It's not like I'm tired all the time. It's just I get lazy. And I don't think it's just because I'm a lazy person. I think it's because my body's just like, no, we don't want to do that. Just sit there, do whatever. And it's a constant kind of struggle to be motivated to do things. That's why I have certain chores throughout the day these are my chores that I always do every day. So I feel like I'm getting something accomplished every day. Like I do the dishes probably twice a day. Not every day, because sometimes we don't use as many dishes, but other times it's twice a day, and I do the dishes every single day, no matter what, because, one, they need done, and somebody has to do them, but also because it's a grounding thing. It gives me something to do every day that is an everyday thing, that is a regular, like, this is something that you need to do, whether you like it or not. And it's not like I get up in the day being like, oh, I'm so excited I get to do dishes today. But I'm also not where I'm like, oh, I dread it. It's not that I dread it or anything like that, where I just hate doing dishes. It's just a chore. And nobody really wants to do chores just because it's kind of like, oh, it's just work that's really unnecessary. But it's necessary because you got to have clean dishes, right? And it's not just me who relies on the clean dishes. It's my family. They need to have clean dishes. My daughter's too young to do all the dishes herself, so I can't have her do them. And her mom works all day long. She works like 12-hour days every day, so I'm not going to make her come home and then wash dishes, because that's asinine, right? That's not nice. That's not fair. So while I'm here, the dishes is one of the big things. Plus, general picking up the house and keeping things organized and clean and whatnot, which is a bit of a struggle. Our house is a bit disorganized. It's messier than I would like. But I'm working on it day at a time. And I think one day we'll get there where we can feel a little bit more comfortable in the house. So So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take different vitamins and supplements that may boost my energy level to a level where I'm like, I want to do more. I have this energy, I'm not using it, what am I going to do with it? And hopefully it'll make me maybe want to exercise more or just, do something constructive and productive and improve my quality of life. That's the plan. And it's partially mental, too, because, you get into a habit of not doing certain things, and then eventually you're just like, whatever, and then your brain is settled into it, and the chemicals kind of just do what they do. And so I'm trying to see if I can alter that situation, right? Motivation. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to increase my motivation. And my energy level is important to increasing that motivation. Because if I have more energy, I'll want to do more things. If I want to do more things, I'll be more motivated to do things. And it's a step-by-step loop of things. And that's the hope. So we're going to keep at it. I've already changed my diet quite a bit. I eat differently than I used to. I used to eat a lot of processed foods and a lot of just stuff that I liked to eat. And now I eat mostly proteins and I drink juices like V8 juices and vegetables and stuff like that, and I've changed up a lot from just unhealthy food. So that's the plan, right? That is the plan, and we'll see how that goes, and I'll probably keep you folks updated as time goes on, and as the episodes go on, how that journey is moving forward. But let's talk about music. Let's talk about music. And we'll start with when I was a kid. I didn't really appreciate music for what it was when I was a kid. I liked it. I liked music, but I didn't really appreciate it for what it was. When I was a kid, it was the 80s at first, and we were moving from cassette tapes to CDs. CDs were becoming a new thing when I was a kid. I still had a lot of tapes that I listened to. I had a Walkman, and I had a boombox, and I had a couple things that, I would listen to. And I had tapes. My dad had records. In the basement, he had like a little office area that he would have with like a stereo setup. And we had records. And we had a lot of records, a lot of vinyl records that were... When I lived at home, I didn't appreciate vinyl. So I didn't look at his whole collection, and I didn't really pay attention to what might have been, quote-unquote, the good stuff. What I liked to listen to was the comedy stuff. I liked to listen to Monty Python. I liked to listen to Weird Al Yankovic. I liked to listen to stuff that was funny, that amused me. And that's how most of my music leanings started. It started with comedy music and parody music and things that weren't particularly serious. I didn't care much for serious music. I liked some things, but not often. And it took me a while to really appreciate music beyond that. If it didn't make me laugh, I didn't care much of it. People were listening to early Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and things like that when I was a kid, and I didn't get into it. And some people would say, well, that's good because that's all pop music and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not trying to talk about opinions on how people feel about genres and things. I mean, I don't like a lot of pop music just because I don't care for it, but I'm not going to sit there and say that it's bad music particularly. I will say some things about certain songs. Like there's a lot of terrible songs out there. And if they just happen to be pop music or hip-hop music or rock music or country music or whatever is irrelevant. It's the song itself that's awful because there are a lot of bad songs out there. To this day, it's never changed. There's a lot of bad songs. But my dad had a really interesting people would say eclectic, but I feel like that word sometimes is overused. But he had a wide variety of things that he would listen to. And that continues to this day. The last time I was in a vehicle with him and he was playing on the radio, I don't remember what it was. We might have listened to some industrial music plus some Christian rap. Like it, he goes all over the place. He likes what he likes. And I'm not going to say anything bad about that because that's where I get my musical tastes, I think, because a lot of my musical expansion happened raiding his growing CD collection, because he had a big CD collection. He got really into CDs. And when I started getting into CDs, where did I go? I raided his collection of CDs. And when I finally really started getting into music, I got into alternative music, which is not, it is not now what it was then. Alternative, when it first came out in the late 90s into the early 2000s, it was definitely different. You had a lot of weird, strange stuff, a lot of different sounds. It had a little bit of grunge, it had a little bit of punk, it had a little bit of rock, it had some metal in there here and there. And nowadays, a few years ago, I don't know how many years, it might have been a number of years ago, Coldplay was being labeled as alternative. And that doesn't really jive with how I remember alternative. Alternative was Alice in Chains and Nirvana and Soundgarden and the Reverend Horton Heat and like all these different things. Ned's Atomic Dustbin, if you know anything about any of these names. Farouk Assault. A lot of female artists got their start in alternative music because it was a chance to, like, if you were not... The thing about it was, previous to that, like, female artists generally were relegated to pop stuff and certain dance kind of things. You know, they weren't taken as seriously. And when alternative came out, it was okay to be quote-unquote weird. And I'm not saying any of these people are weird in a derogatory way. I'm saying alternative music at the time sometimes was awfully strange. And it was strange in the best of ways. I remember all of that so very fondly because I started listening to the radio. And I didn't like the top 40 stations because they never played stuff consistently that I liked. I would maybe get one song out of a bunch that was okay to me. But we had a radio station when I was a kid. And the station itself is still around because all the numbers like 104.3 and 107.6 and 10 whatever, all that stuff still exists. It just changes formats over time depending on who's listening. But we had 107.9 The End, which was based out of Cleveland, Ohio, and when I was listening to it, my dad used to listen to it, which is how I started listening to it. They played hard rock alternative. So you'd get Nine Inch Nails, you'd get Nirvana, you'd get Soundgarden, you'd get Alice in Chains, you would get early Marilyn Manson, all these different things at the time that were new and strange and different. And they played a lot of things, and a lot of it was uncensored. I don't know how they got away with it. But they played a lot of things uncensored. So I would record on my little tape deck. I would record from the radio station if I heard a song that I liked. So I had my mixtapes. And eventually that station changed formats. It stopped being an alternative station and turned into a hip hop station, which I, at the time, had no appreciation for. I did not like rap music. It took me late into my 30s really to appreciate rap music for what it was. And I don't mean that to say that there wasn't any good rap music until I was that age. It just meant I didn't appreciate what was out there, because most of what got played on the radio was the crud. It was the awful stuff. It was, pointless, the in the club, gang related stuff, whatever. It didn't have anything of substance. So, and I remember when they went off the air briefly to reformat, they put on a loop, they put REM's "It's the End of the World as We Know It" on a loop for hours and hours and hours as the station switched over. Oh, it was sad. It was kind of sad, because this is a station when Eminem first arrived on the scene, and he had that song, that Slim Shady song, that was all comedy stuff. Everybody thought he was just a comedic rapper. He was just all jokes, and they played him on 107.9, and I liked it because I thought, oh, this is funny. And then once he started getting into the serious music, like, no, I'm a serious rapper, I'm a serious hip-hop artist, then they stopped playing him, and I stopped caring. And I'm not saying anything. If you like Eminem, that's fine. I've liked his comedic stuff over the years, but I haven't liked any of his serious things. I don't care for it, because I thought he was better as a comedy act. And I'm not saying he should stay that way, and I'm not trying to put him down. I'm just not into him as a serious artist, and that's fine. Some people are, some people aren't. Before that, to go backwards a little bit, one of my earliest memories of music that eventually made me appreciate it, even though at the time I was too young to really understand. My dad had a 2-door, sporty little Subaru. It was before the Impreza. It was all angular. It had this steering wheel that had buttons, like, I don't know what. It looked like a flight simulator. It had so many buttons on it. But he had this Subaru, and it had a tape deck, because it was an 80s vehicle. And he had a tape of Nine Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine, which was new at the time, of course, as of 1989. And I remember sitting in the back seat on the way to different places, and because, I hadn't shown any inclination towards paying attention to music, and I was kind of oblivious to it, he would just play the music. And that stuck with me. It stuck with me. And while I didn't get into that early on, when I started to become more open to music, my older sister got into Nine Inch Nails first. She got into it when MTV was on the air. They used to watch the music videos. And the Perfect Drug video had come out. And of course, she was a young teenager, and she liked the goth look of Trent Reznor, and she was like, oh, he's pretty cute, and things like that, and we would watch The Perfect Drug. And so my dad had albums. He had The Downward Spiral. He had Pretty Hate Machine. I don't know if he had Broken. I don't know if he got into that one. I eventually bought a copy of that myself. And my older sister had The Fragile, which I borrowed. And I got really heavily into them. I'm still a pretty big Nine Inch Nails fan to this day, but not as much as I used to be. It's not quite the same as it was. I still like it, but I'm not into... I don't listen to the film scores as much, because I don't have the time to sit and really digest a film score like I used to. which is too bad because I used to be into film scores really big, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. We're building up to it. We're all over the place with this history on this episode, but I'm getting to it. I'm going to try to cover everything. Going back to when I was a kid, the first band that was not a parody band that I started to really get into after I heard them on the radio was Everclear. And they're still out touring today. They're still putting out music. But my dad had a copy of So Much for the Afterglow. And it changed my life. It opened my eyes to how music could be. It was both alternative, but a little bit on the poppy side in places, but a little bit, it had all the different elements. It was great. I loved it. Listened to it all the time. I don't know if I still have his copy. I took a lot of these CDs when I left, unfortunately, so I did kind of swipe some of his CD collection. He didn't really listen to them as much anymore anyway, but because by that time, satellite radio and different things had come out, and when I moved, he was more into that, so he could listen to whatever he wanted on Sirius XM or different things, But Everclear was huge for me, that album. And even their other albums, I've never gotten into as much as that one. That one I will listen to start to finish, and other ones I won't. Not because I don't like it, but it didn't have the impact, because that was the album for me at the time. And Smash Mouth, I listened to Fushu Mong, which was where you had Walking on the Sun, and I listened to, when Astro Lounge came out, I bought it from the local Kmart, so I got my own copy. Kind of fell off with them too, because they got kind of silly and poppy with different things and doing the various cover songs and whatnot. I feel bad about that dude because now he's gone, and he had a lot of mental health issues. But that's how things went with people, I think, both at the time and as they went on. A lot of the alternative artists, they had issues, and that's maybe what made the music so good. Because there's always been a theory that it takes a person being kind of broken, kind of having issues to make really great art. And while I don't think that's a total cut and dry absolute, I can see it, having become a musician myself, which maybe we'll get to if we can get through some of this other history stuff. So I got into Everclear, and then I started rating my dad's Nine Inch Nails CDs, and I got into them. And I got into, when I got into Nine Inch Nails, was around the time that MP3s came on the scene. And not only that, but also downloading music from the internet. And this was long before you had iTunes and everything set up in a way where you could purchase it legally. You had Napster, you had Kazaa, you had LimeWire, you had WinMX, you had all these different platforms to download music from wherever. And, I did. I mean, it's far too late for anybody from the government to come after me now for that. It's been decades. And now you have to find a way to prove that the MP3s I have are illegal versus what I paid for, because I have paid for a lot of MP3s. So, if you're listening and you're trying to build a legal case, there's not much you can do about it. It's going to cost you a lot more to try to do it than it's worth. But yes, I did pirate music. I have pirated music in my lifetime. And so I started downloading Nine Inch Nails tracks, like rare tracks and this and that. And there were a lot of fakes at the time. There was stuff that was labeled as Nine Inch Nails when it wasn't. And I would go on Sundays, when we would go to church, before I stopped going out with my family for church, which is, I covered that in the previous episode. we would go to church, and then we would go out to eat, and then often we might go. We had a thing where we would go to a music store for CDs, or we would go to different places. We would go to malls, and we would, go out and make a day out of it. And this was the days of Borders. Borders was a huge bookstore that also eventually carried music and different things. And we would go to Erie, Pennsylvania, which was quite a bit of a drive from where I used to live. But like I said, we'd make a day out of it. We would go up there to the Borders store. Borders, as a company, is under. They're not around anymore. But at the time, they were fantastic. And they had a CD section, and I would go there, and I would find these ridiculously rare Nine Inch Nails EPs and singles and things that I didn't know existed. And I didn't know about, like, Nine Inch Nails has a halo system, is what it's called, where each album and each piece of released work is assigned a halo number, generally, most of the time. Like, the Downward Spiral, I believe, is Halo 8, I think. Pretty Hate Machine is actually Halo 2, because the Halo 1 is the Down In It single, if I'm remembering correctly. I think I'm way off on some of these things. So I noticed this, and I noticed the numbers, and I started... The Borders up there had these ridiculously rare... I didn't know they were rare at the time. I just know I didn't know about them. I knew I didn't know about them. That's a weird way to say that. I didn't realize that they were rare. They had remixes, and they had, different things on them and edits. I bought them up, and I have a pretty comprehensive collection now of Nine Inch Nails CDs that you can't find anyplace else, that just happened to come through there out of random chance, and they're worth hundreds of dollars, which is pretty ridiculous. I got into that, downloading music, all that good stuff, live stuff that was performed differently than what was on the album. And I don't remember, a buddy of mine, somebody that I used to know, I traded him something. I don't remember what, because I did some trades of things, of various CDs or games or whatnot. I traded somebody for a copy of Marilyn Manson's Antichrist Superstar. Now, previous to this, I had heard all the rumors about Marilyn Manson having a rib removed and, doing what he did, which never happened, by the way. It's just a thing that people made up for whatever weird reason. And so I used to make fun of Marilyn Manson. I used to be like, look at that, whatever. But then I started listening to Sweet Dreams and some of the other things that would come on the radio, and I was like, this isn't that bad. And I was getting into heavier music. I was getting into more challenging music. And so I traded for a copy of Antichrist Superstar. I still have that copy in this house. And I used to listen to it while I mowed the lawn. We had a few acres of land that needed mowed when I was a kid, and we had a little riding motor. I'm all over the place tonight. My brain's in overtime trying to go through all this, because there's just it was just such a seminal thing in my life. A riding lawnmower, which I got stuck multiple times, and I made a mess of, unfortunately. But I used to slap on my headphones and my CD player, my portable CD player, because I had one of those at the time. And I would listen to Marilyn Manson, the Antichrist Superstar album, while I mowed the lawn, and it changed things for me. It was challenging. It was different. I felt like, people don't like that I'm listening to this, but this is good stuff. I like this, but it's transgressive. It's things that are bad, but I like it. I started looking for more music like that. and I got into really heavy industrial stuff. I got into Skinny Puppy. Oh my gosh, the day that I got into that, the track Convulsions by Skinny Puppy it borders on just regulated noise. It's almost unlistenable by people who likes regular, like, radio friendly music, and I loved it. Oh my goodness, I loved it, and I looked everywhere for as much of anything labeled industrial as I possibly could. Got into Bile and got into 16 volt and got into Nitzer Ebb and Frontline Assembly, and my whole landscape changed. And it was about that time that I got the Music Generator program to start making music myself, and that informed a lot of my music sensibilities going forward. I'm not going to rehash that because I did talk about that in a previous episode plenty. But then I started getting into Tool, I started getting into A Perfect Circle, I got into all these different things, and when I moved out, I started being able to go see bands because I had my own money. I worked. I could get rides with people, and I have seen Nine Inch Nails probably 8 to 10 times. I don't remember exactly. It's been several times. I've seen Tool just a couple times less than that. I've seen Meshuggah twice, and they were much better the second time. I've seen Ministry. I've seen A Perfect Circle. I've seen Burning Brides, fantastic. Not really a band anymore, but they're fantastic. Who else? I've seen Saul Williams, who opened for Nine Inch Nails. David Sitek and TV on the Radio. Peter Murphy. Oh, seeing Peter Murphy in Pittsburgh. Oh, that was fantastic. That was excellent. He was on a tour with Nine Inch Nails. A lot of people I saw peripherally with Nine Inch Nails. I've seen Rob Zombie twice. I got to see Manson once. It was not the best performance he ever could have gotten because it was before he got sober, which he is sober now, and man, if I could see a Manson performance now, I think I'd be blown away. At the time, I think it was the best I was going to get because it was a hometown show because he's from this area. Marilyn Manson is from Canton, Ohio, and so whenever he comes through here, he tries to do a little bit better than he would do other places. He absolutely butchered the Dope show, though, at the show that I went to. Man, it was awful. But the rest of it was mostly okay. But he was still under a lot of substance abuse at the time, so. Foo Fighters. Got to see Foo Fighters. Alice in Chains. I didn't get to see them with Lane Staley, though. He was long gone. I saw them with the new guy. He's not the new guy anymore. He's been with them for years now, but he's not, But they are alright. The Struts. I've seen the Struts. I got to see Skinny Puppy in the House of Blues in Cleveland, Ohio, and my goodness, what an experience. Being in such a small place, oh my gosh, it's fantastic. My first show, I believe, was A Perfect Circle and Burning Brides, I think. I made the unfortunate circumstance to date a girl that I knew from marching band. And I don't know why. She was just we had a circle of friends at the time. And I think maybe I don't know. I was thinking with hormones. I wasn't thinking any other way. And so I said, hey, maybe we can go out. And she was living in Columbus at the time because she was going to school. And I went out there to visit, and then we went to see Perfect Circle and different things in Cleveland. And we were supposed to still be seeing each other, and then she stopped talking to me. And eventually I found out through various web forums, because those were a big thing at the time, that she was already seeing another dude and she had moved in with him and hadn't told me any of it. And I was just like, oh, all right, okay, whatever. So I got pissed about that, and I haven't talked to her since. I've seen her when I've been out in that direction once or twice, but I don't talk to her. Like, that's... I was young, I was hormonal, and the feelings just... And now it's long beyond. Like, there's no point. I don't feel very strongly about it at all, so there's no reason to, like, reconnect or do anything, because who cares? What else? I saw Tool, and as one of my second shows. Tool, my second show, with Meshuggah. Meshuggah at the time were kind of boring. I liked the music because it was just noisy, and it still is. Meshuggah is amazing, by the way, if you're into noise metal, which is a natural extension of industrial stuff. But they didn't have a stage presence. The guys with long hair just swung their heads around, so the long hair swung in circles, and they jammed on their guitars, and then the lead singer would just stand in one spot with his foot up on the monitor and move his hands up and down. And that was it. They didn't do anything. They were really boring to watch. The second time I saw Meshuggah was opening for Ministry on Ministry's... What had been, it was going to be their farewell tour, and then they decided they were going to continue for a few more years. But they had wireless plugs for their guitars, and they were all over the stage, and the lead singer was everywhere, and they were a lot more entertaining. Their second time seeing them, they had grown a lot more in stage presence, and they were fantastic. Meshuggah was excellent to see live. The second time. And Ministry was alright. I liked Ministry. There was some controversy with Ministry, because I had gone... Ministry was at the Agora in Cleveland. And I planned to go see them. This is when I was seeing the girl before, who I'm with now. And I told her, yeah, I'm going to go see Ministry. And she had been living in Akron at the time. She still lives in Akron, but she'd been going to this... And I'd been visiting in Akron when I could, because it was before I moved. I still lived in Conneaut. I said, yeah, I'm going to go see Ministry. And she said, well, why can't you come see me while you do that? Because Akron is not on the way to Cleveland. It's a little bit more out of the way, but, it was possibly doable. And I was thinking just about money and time, whatever. And we had a little argument about it, but I did come to see her, and I ended up visiting her for a little while. And then going to see Ministry, but it was a bit of a sore spot. So it kind of dampened things a little bit for me, but Ministry was still good. So, of course, as time went on, I started recording my own music. I've recorded my own albums, and I've grown. When I lived on my own in Conneaut, and then when I first moved to Akron, I listened to a lot of movie soundtracks. And I don't mean soundtracks necessarily where it's like a bunch of bands in the credits. I'm talking about the movie scores, where the composers, the background music. And I liked the music from the Aliens franchise and Predator and different things, and Chronicles of Riddick, and really moody, kind of some punctuated with action. And I listened to that a lot. And that got me into dark ambient, which is not particularly soundtracks, but it's drone heavy. It could be used as a soundtrack. And that's how I got into Lustmord. Lustmord is fantastic. It's just dark. It's droney. It hits all the boxes for me without having to have any vocals. There's seldom any vocals, any lyrics of any kind. They did put out, it's one guy doing it. And he did put out an album where there was a bunch of vocal stuff, like ad-libs and whatnot in the background. There's a track of his called "The Song of Soul," which is just it's heart wrenching, but it's fantastic in the best of ways. Lustmord. I got into that. I used to listen to that while I slept. I would turn on dark ambient music, dark droney, just creepy music while I slept. And maybe it contributed to some of the weird dreams I had at the time. I don't know. And my first 3 albums that I released were dark ambient. And while for some reason they're still not showing up on streaming platforms for whatever reason, I don't know why, you can listen to them on my Bandcamp, spiderinthehall.bandcamp.com. Look for Between Space and Oblivion, 5051, and what was the last one called? My goodness, I'm going to have to look it up. I don't remember the names of my own friggin' albums here. Let's find out here. Oh, yeah, I don't want to look at you. This is, I was looking up something else earlier. I've been having to block a lot of people on Facebook for stalking, if you can believe that. Related to the lawyering. So if any of them are listening, you're stalking me. Okay? You're stalking me. But, let's see, 5051. Where's the other one at? It's not on my Bandcamp, which is weird. There's always one that's always, I don't know. Anyway, I got into dark ambient and I did those 3 albums, and I've done a couple more since then. I've done In a Dark Place, and I've done Tarsus, which was a companion piece to Gatecrasher. So it had like a Martian landscape kind of feel to it. And I may yet put out another album. I've always thought about doing another dark ambient piece, but it's you have to get into a right mood, and you have to have the right kind of melodies in mind, not to stay stagnant and to sound like things you've done before, or to just sound like... A drone is fine if you accent it with different things that make it interesting. Otherwise, just Tibetan meditation music, right? Which is fine if that's what you want. But if you're trying to make dark ambient, you got to do something to make it more interesting. But I was into a lot of movie soundtracks, and that informed that. And now that I've had my daughter, and I've had to kind of be careful about what I play until she's old enough to understand certain concepts and lyrics, and I'm trying not to play the various things that are full of language that I tend to enjoy. I don't sit and listen to music often, which is strange because it's been such a huge part of my life. I would just sit and listen to music all the time. I was always the guy on the marching band bus with a stereo in the back to play music for the trips that we would go on for whatever football games we had to go to or competitions. I always had music in the car. I went out of my way to make sure I had music in cars that might not have even had working stereos. Like I would hook up portable CD players and little tape decks. You know how that works with the little adapter piece. And I don't do that as much anymore. I still get music. I still buy music. And I still sometimes listen to Spotify and things if I don't know something and I want to hear it before I buy it. But it's difficult for me to sit and just listen to an album anymore. Because I have to pay attention to my daughter, or I have to pay attention to the house, or I have to do things. And it's different than just playing music randomly throughout the house and letting it play. And sometimes I'll go outside with a portable speaker and my little iPod and hook up the Bluetooth, and I'll listen to a bunch of stuff for fun. But I don't have the luxury of doing that as much anymore. And I can't say that it makes me sad, but it does make me a little disappointed. Because it used to be such a thing for me. And I feel like it should still be a big thing for me. And there's music that's come out that I really enjoy, like the new Deftones album. It's called Private Music. It's great. It's classic Deftones. It's everything you would want from them. And it's not really particularly boring. It's not particularly anything extra exciting compared to what their old work is, but it's what it is. And if you like Deftones, you're going to love it. Nine Inch Nails has the soundtrack for Tron Ares, the new Tron movie coming out. And there's a couple of songs on there. They're billed as being Nine Inch Nails rather than billed as Trent Reznor doing a music score. So the music should be a bit more interesting for a movie score to me. But I don't know if I'll ever have the chance to sit down and just listen to it all the way through. I make an effort every year around Christmas to listen to Marilyn Manson's Hollywood every year, because it's tradition. And I've been managing to keep doing that. I feel good about keeping that up. And there's I don't know, I feel disconnected sometimes to music compared to what I was before, because it used to be such a huge thing for me. And I have so much music just sitting on these hard drives that I've downloaded, that I've paid for, that I've pulled from CDs. And I just don't have the time to sit and listen to it anymore. And that's the kind of thing that would make me brood. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing that would put me in a mood like, And it has sometimes in the past. I mean, I'm stable now, but still, I still feel a little off about it. Like, I've got all this good music, and I've even gotten new stuff that I've bought that I haven't even listened to. That's maybe I might have bought it last year, and I haven't listened to it. Or even the year before, and I haven't listened to it. So it's a strange place to be honest. It's a strange feeling to be, or to have been, a musician and to be influenced by all these different great musicians throughout life and then not to do anything more with it. I do have a lot of ideas for a new album. I talked about it a few shows ago, if not last show. I do have ideas and lyrics and musical ideas in my brain for a new album that's very heavily influenced by a lot of this stuff. I've got a lot of Chris Cornell ideas in there. I've got a lot of Corrosion of Conformity ideas in there. Some Nine Inch Nails stuff in there that I'm. It's not recorded yet, but the ideas are there, and I'm hoping I can continue with the motivation, because, again, motivation is where I'm at right now. It's difficult to find motivation and to get the energy to do things. And I'm hoping I can work that up to sit and get the time to put this new album together. So I think it's time. I think I'd like to do at least another one, if not two more. I don't know. I said I was retired a few years ago, and then I got pulled back into it, and now the bugs got me. And I want to do more. It's just getting the logistics figured out. So that's it. It's been a long, really rambly episode about different things. I hope it was interesting. It's always fascinating to look back on some of my own history as far as this stuff goes. And to kind of examine it and remember it and pick at the nostalgia. Because again, that's mostly what this podcast is about. It's very much about nostalgia and about looking at past things and appreciating some of them for what they were. Some of them. So that's what we've got for tonight. What do we have going on? Don't forget also, we are now partners. We are now partners and affiliates with Musicians Hangout. They're on YouTube. Look them up. A great pair of ladies who do interviews of indie musicians across the globe. They are great at what they do. I've known them for a long time. And I have something else that I can't talk about yet. I have another partnership through them with somebody else, another mutual friend of ours who I can't drop any hints. I want to, but I'm not going to. I can't drop any hints about it. But there's another big partnership coming along, and that should make, between those partnerships and Big Buff Records, I might finally get that boot in the backside to do more music of my own. It would make sense. Also, don't forget, we are on the new season of This Uncanny Earth. We were supposed to have a new episode this past Thursday, but that episode had to get postponed because of our third host, Steven, had a bit of a medical, not a crisis, not an emergency, but an issue that needed to get taken care of. So he was not able to do his episode, which is fine. You know, that's how things go. That's life. But the next episode is going to be me, which will be the official first episode of the season, I believe. And so we'll continue with that. This Uncanny Earth on YouTube. All that good stuff. There's new merchandise in the Uncanny Shop, theuncannyshop.com. It's connected to uncannymedia.net. So many websites, so many links. Check them all out. It's fantastic. I still do nightly game streams on Twitch, twitch.tv/DMGRGN. Thank you for your support. Really, I 100% appreciate everything that you have all done to help us grow and expand and to truly become unstoppable. And that's it, and that's all I got. I'm going to say goodnight, and I'll see you folks next time.